Hi, I'm Shakti Durga. Welcome to the Goddess Speaks podcast. This is a collection of discourses from the ancient goddess Artha, containing spiritual energy and activations and discussions of those discourses. I hope that the teachings are beneficial to you on your personal journey of enlightenment. Artha started. Namaste, beloved ones, and welcome to this place of meeting to which you've brought your energy field today. We meet here in the astral reality that's no less real than the reality that you live on your earth. Fascinating, isn't it? Because sometimes we think the inner world isn't real, but it is. It's just having its own reality that's somewhat different to the one we know here on earth, but it's still real. She said, if the astral reality was removed from your life upon the earth, your life would cease to exist. Your physical expression can only take place within an astral framework. Well, we know that, don't we? This is an immutable law. It's said in the Kabbalistic teaching that the realm of the soul is the realm of creating, but that the realm of the astral world is where things actually take form. And this is true, she said. And that might be news to anyone who thinks things take form in the physical world. Well, they don't. They take form in the astral world and then they plop into the physical world, kind of formed already. So you can't have something form in the physical world unless the astral form already exists. And even if you think about building a building, there's a plan before the commencement. And often that plan is written on a piece of paper or on a computer, but there's definitely a plan that someone's thought about before the physical building. So it always exists on the inner plane before it exists in the physical world. It's very fast sometimes between where it's created in the soul realm and the form flicks through so fast through the astral world and it comes out as some new creative artistic endeavor. And I think that's why there's so much energy in art sometimes, because the journey, it's a starburst of energy coming from the world of creation and it's high energy. But even so, there is a little bit of the astral there, even in that, for it to plop through into the physical, for us to pick it up. Arthur said, the realm of the astral sea is where things take form. Your higher soul, along with every other being that exists within the soul realm, including the gods and angels and all beings of light, are able to project down into the astral world some portion of their own being, encoded with light information and patterns of energy that bring forth their consciousness into some kind of manifest form. And the manifest form that Arthur was speaking of is not physical. It's astral manifest form. So that's really good to know. And all the gods and the angels and the beings of light, they can all do that. This could not be done without the impetus of divine energy that flows through the soul realm with sufficient power to create. So the power comes from the soul realm, but the forming comes through the astral potencies and requires the elemental energies of fire, earth, air, and water, and their combination state of ether. And everything comes from those combinations. So that shows you how important it is to have a passing understanding of the elements which make up our being and comprise all parts of what then becomes a physical existence. She said, in the astral field, the elements are only energies. They're energies that are discrete from each other, and which are utilised in the process of formation to bring all the forms that we recognise in the physical world, from the tiniest ant to the greatest mountain. She said it's all the same, the way it's created. Then she said, there are in fact beings in the realm of the soul who are responsible for the projection of all the forms that you see in the world. So, for example, Himavan was given as the example. He exists in the world of the soul as a god in his own right, the god of mountains. And Arthur said Himavan is behind the creation of mountains, not just the Himalayas, the Himalayas are named after Himavan, but all mountains. In other cultures, this same energy of the divine, Himavan, may be called by other names. And this is part of the divine plan, that the spirit of each individual mountain will have some part of the projection of the god Himavan as we know it, but it'll also have part of the design of its own, because there are beings on the inner plane that look after each and every expression. So each and every mountain would have its own beings looking after it. And so Himavan kind of looks after all mountains, but then there's individual mountains within that, all with their own individual essence or spirit. The more sensitive you get to energy, the more you can really understand this, because you can sense the differences between different places you go, as I'm sure many of you already can. And so it is that there are direct creations by a certain being in the soul realm. Then there's admixed creations. And by that she meant that there are creations of more than one being in the soul realm, co-creating expressions through the astral world that will later take on some kind of physical form or expression in the physical world. And then the next part is fascinating and obvious if you think about it. But anyway, she said all of these light trajectories which enter into the world of polarity, which is the astral sea, then give rise to their own opposite in accordance with the divine plan. So everything that goes from the soul realm into the astral realm then splits in half in a way, and half of it becomes one thing and half of it becomes its opposite thing. Not because the realm is in any way evil or bad, but because it's the realm of creating. And every artist knows that one's art can be empowered more greatly if you have access to a large choice of colours, and that painting from just light colours or painting from just the dark colours would be dull. And it's the interplay that creates the potential, and the potential of what could be created is the divine play. And so it is that beings created from the mind of the divine are then placed in such a way that they're able to create. Forms are taken in the astral plane, where the interplay of light and dark creates an extravaganza of forms from the one form. And then it comes to the physical world, and then it plays out as variety. It plays out as variety on the planet Earth, and that's the design. That each of our souls has created an astral form of us before the physical form could be created, and it was created with great detail in accordance with the laws of all the realms through which you travel to get to Earth. And each time we come to Earth, and she meant each lifetime, a new form's created, and this is unique, called your ego, and it's the form of the vehicle you travel in while you're here on Earth, and it must be comprised of forces of both light and dark to be given expression at all. So I find this fascinating. She's saying that in order to exist in physical human form, we have to have expression of light and dark inside of us, or we can't exist. So there goes most of the theology of most worldly religions. Bye. Because it tries to tell us that there's good people and there's bad people, but in fact there's just people, and that everybody's got to have some light and dark within them. And of course we kind of know that, but this is just putting it in a different way. I think Arthur says things through a different lens, it's very fascinating. She says that the beings of Earth plane are admixed, and it has to be that way. There has to be some kind of imperfection, so-called, in every being. And it's called that to the critical human mind. But that's the plan, so it's perfect when it's viewed from higher consciousness. Some of these vehicles are able to maintain connection with the creator of their form, which is their higher soul. And she said that connection really does need to be maintained, and that we can't expect that the connection to your higher soul will be maintained without some effort on the part of the physical vehicle itself to maintain that connection. as in from us up to the higher soul. She said, the soul itself keeps connection in place through the silver cord you know of as your pillar of light. And this pillar of light gives rise to you having life, and the pillar is withdrawn from your body through the portal of death. An interesting part of the divine design for the play of consciousness is that when one's consciousness is evolving, one can perceive differences at times in one's response to how one lives one's life. So as our consciousness evolves, we can see more clearly in meditation as well. And there's a strengthening of the feeling of being connected to something greater than yourself, and that this is very desirable and very healthy. And it's good that you have the understanding that this progression of consciousness has no limit. And she was really on about the progression of consciousness has no limit. And so complacency, which gives rise to egotism, spiritual egotism in the consciousness takes, she said that's hard to take root within this group because of the depth to which our training and consciousness is grounded in the concept that there's an endless array of consciousness, that it's infinite. And she said that's really healthy to remember. And she said, whenever you feel you're done, you're cooked, you've reached it, or you're superior, there's a little sliver of ego that's strengthened. And she said, so stay in the question and allow your consciousness to continue to evolve. Always be in that place of opening to, and there's more. So she said the process of evolution of consciousness isn't just an upward journey, but also involves the bringing forth of the higher energies down from the upper realms through the astral realm and into your physical life. The next bit I had to bold. Avoidance of what's going on in your physical life will limit you in your spiritual development. Don't we wish she hadn't said that? There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. Can't avoid your stuff. And if you find that you have the tendency to transcend your stuff rather than engage with your stuff, then understand that this can be a trap whereby our ego resists the ceding of authority to the higher soul because the ego pushes us out of the vehicle so we can have an experience of how great we are, but then doesn't bring that into the vehicle itself to deal with things. So the transcendental potency is really essential, says Artha, for us to master, and all of the great masters are good at transcendence. But there's other skills required for the full development of us. The idea of consciousness and its ascending tendency is matched by another concept, which is that without doing maintenance, the consciousness will tend to devolve. It will tend to weaken, and you don't experience it weakening until you're a long way from where you were. And that downward spiraling in consciousness is rarely apparent to us, to the person who's going through it. I must say I've had an experience of this myself. I can remember a time years ago, might have been, I don't know, say 7, 8 years ago. I remember that I'd had an intense time of here in Australia going from retreat to retreat to retreat and being in a really high state for an extended period of time. And my consciousness was trotting along at a good clip. And then I went travelling, and I travelled to quite a lot of places and countries in maybe an 8-week period. And whilst I did do a few retreats during that time, they were short and there was a lot of time spent travelling and spent in all kinds of different energies and different things. And my spiritual practice was not the hours and hours and hours every day type thing it is when you're on retreat. And I'd been on retreat, as I say, for months, really. I did start to notice a devolution in my consciousness. And then I thought, that's really fascinating. Worries would come in that I hadn't had for a long time. I thought, oh, fascinating. And then a few of the senior team also went away for considerable periods of time, and I was able to sort of really see the difference in the feel of their chakras when they came back And then I thought, it's not just the traveling, it's not just the not being on retreat, it's also the Buddha Dharma Sangha thing. So the teacher, the teachings, and the community. And that threesome, the teacher, the teachings, and the community, when we're engaged with it, it keeps our consciousness elevated, even if we're in a period where we can't do as much as we might normally do. You devolve less, let's put it that way. Obviously, it's desirable for everyone to do daily spiritual practice. But I just thought I'd mention that experience because it's not often that you do see your own consciousness devolve. I've also seen it in people who've come to classes regularly and then they stop coming for various reasons, all of which are fine. And then when you see them again after a year or two, their energy fields are really shrunken in and their vibration in the chakras is often not anything like it was when they were doing the regular stuff. And so you just think, what we're doing is it's really potent, to keep us lifted. And Arthur did say that this downward spiraling of consciousness is rarely apparent to the person concerned. This is one of the great benefits of having a mystery school and a spiritual teacher, that as one stays in unity with the Sangha and the teacher, the flow of energy, which includes us all, tends to hold everybody more stable than would be capable of doing by ourselves. And as we stay connected to the teacher, the teachings, and each other, there's a natural lift. And this lift in the dark age in which we live is necessary to stay even in one place. There you go. If you do nothing, you sink because it's a dark age. If you do a little bit, you might tread water. It takes actual concerted effort for progress. But that progress resounds throughout the galaxy. And all of the beings of the soul realm cheer every piece of progress that's made. Every development in any person through a dark age is cheered because we understand how difficult and challenging it is to make that progress with all of the pressure that leads to this devolution of consciousness before you blink. Very rich, I think. She said, in accordance with the law of correspondence, you're reminded how in the physical body there is an expression, use it or lose it. This is used in the fitness industry to our muscular development, use it or lose it. Even when quite physically developed, without using that muscular development, it dwindles. She said, this is your safety for understanding that consciousness is the same. You can remind yourself that the law of correspondence is showing us something here. As it is for muscles, so it is for mind. As it is for the strength of the body, so it is we must practice to retain the strength within our consciousness. I love it. Remember, beloved ones, that no beings are able to penetrate the pure white light of the consciousness that is greater than their own average consciousness. The peak experiences allow for a visitation, but we see downwards to where others are making errors. We can see across to others who are of a similar consciousness to us, but seeing upwards is difficult because the world works differently at those higher reaches. So it actually works differently. And what I've experienced too is that the shape of thoughts is different. When your consciousness becomes stable at a higher level, the shape of your thoughts will be different. You just won't think the same way. But there's literally forms in your astral field that are holding you inside a thought form that's quite limited. And you don't know because you're inside of it. Anyway, she says, take the presence of our beloved Kamadhenu here today. She's a force of nature, part of the soul realm's expression from the divine mind. And it's through this energy of divine grace that when one reaches a consciousness of joy, inherent in which is love and compassion, when the joy is consciousness, is replete and open and becomes your average, Kamadhenu comes to play in your life. And your thought is her desire to create. And she knows you better than you know yourself, because Kamadhenu has access not only to your conscious mind, but to the recesses of that which your mind cannot penetrate, the 95% of you that is not known to the mind. And yet to the divine all is revealed. Then she says, strive for joy, beloved ones, and compassion will come. Isn't that funny? Often we're taught the other way around. Strive for compassion and this will bring contentment. But she says, strive for joy and compassion will come. And she said it 3 times. So I think it might be important. I had to bold it in my document. The joy that you are urged to strive towards is not the brittle happiness of the ego given rise to in an unbalanced way, or in a way that would come at the expense of any other being, or in a way that would be at the expense of your own well-being. That's not joy. That's delusion. But the joy of friendship, the joy of love, the joy of nurturing, the joy of helping others, the joy of opening to the divine, the joy of divine connection, the joy of nature, the joy of each other. These things are true things of joy. And when they become established within your being, a natural compassion arises easily and floods through us and our life. How amazing is that? A natural compassion arises. She said, think upon these things, beloved ones, for the initiatory process is noticed by your ego as all the inconveniences that you suffer. There's a pain here, there's a negative thought there, there's a surge of emotion that you've suppressed for a long time. But she said, don't focus on all that stuff. Focus on the joy, the burgeoning joy of divine communion, of friendship, of fun and play together. For remember that this world is created as a classroom, yes, but where the lesson and the object of the lesson is joy. You are here to learn joy. Fabulous, isn't it? You're here to learn joy. Imagine if everyone was joyful. And in that joy, there's a contentment, there's a fascination with life, there's kindness, there's no sense of scarcity or shortage or being motivated to do things because of money or pressure. There's just joy. Be amazing. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't feel other emotions, and I don't think she's saying that, because we know if you don't feel negative emotions from time to time, you would be a psychopath. You really would be. So it's not saying that, but it's saying that where you rebound to is joy. Whereas in our society, we know a lot of people who will have the odd moment of happiness and then they rebound to depression. Or they have the odd moment of peace and contentment, then they rebound to anxiety. And that anxiety is the resting state of consciousness. And it takes work to get out of that. And as Arthur said, any scintilla of work we do to get out of these negative states is celebrated on the inner plane. It is celebrated. And there's always assistance for us. So learning to be joyful means that you get the set point within your consciousness where joy is your returning to place. And yes, something might happen, makes you very sad. One of my close friends had a scare with a pet within the last couple of days. There was a big worry about whether this beloved animal was going to be okay or not. And of course there would have been anxiety. Of course there would have been fear. There would have been sadness. There would have been shock that this healthy animal suddenly wasn't healthy. There would have been a whole range of emotions. But where do you go with that? You can take it all back to joy. You know, you can actually then return to joy, and joy in that animal, and joy in the time you've had with that animal. And hopefully the animal becomes well, and there's lots more joy coming with the animal. There's joy for having had the animal, the experience of having been able to love that animal and be loved by that animal. There's a place in which one can have in one's consciousness a deep abiding joy, as well as maybe situational sadness or situational anxiety or anger or fear. But the joy underneath it is our returning to place. Is that making sense? You're learning to be joyful with or without the stimulus that previously you thought of as the precondition to joy. If you thought, I can be joyful if I lose 20 pounds, I would be joyful actually. But Arthur says, if you thought I can be joyful if I lose 20 pounds, that's not the joy. That's the conditioned mind stuff. If you thought I can be joyful if my body would stop aching, that's not the joy. If you thought I'd be joyful if I got more attention, or if someone showed me more love, or if I had more friendship, that's not the joy. The joy is spontaneous, and it permeates both sides of polarity as you experience them and lifts you from a mundane life to a supernal life on the planet, even in the physical. In the background, you can find the bubbling of this joy, and it can start to seep through into your interactions more than it ever has before. And even when it seems that the opposite of joy is our expression that we're experiencing, Arthur said, look into that well, beloved ones. Look into that well. Go into that well of whatever it is you're feeling. And because she said that's where joy will meet you, in it. So just go deep. She said, be empowered in your life by knowing that the purpose of your life is the embodiment of joy and all the kindness and goodness and love and the divine qualities, the boundless mirth, the play of the gods, the presence of Mother Kamadhenu. All of this is your inheritance and you're preparing for it. This initiatory process, beloved ones, resounds, as you've been told already, through the heavens. But many of you haven't been able to accept this. Your minds bounce away from the concept that anything you're doing as a group could be noticed by the gods and goddesses in a realm beyond your own. But it's true. This joint effort is appreciated because we understand the depths of the Kali Yuga. It is appreciated. So she's repeated that several times. And then she said, feel the flower petals of divine grace and love being thrown to each of you as though the divine is throwing flower petals of pure bliss and love descending into your crown chakra right now. Do it right now. Feel it right now. I'm feeling it again right now as I'm just reading the words. So these words have got a lot of power in them. So feel the divine flower petals coming into your crown chakra, and it just feels like bliss, bringing forth a showering of bliss, of beauty, of love, of encouragement. Let it in, she said, just let it in. So just open your crown and take a moment to think thank you for the blessings from the gods who are aware of our progress and watching and celebrating with us. She said, be aware of the energy of Kamadhenu as you move forward and that you are churning the ocean of milk and good things will flow from it. It is not just the poison that erupts. It's all the good that comes beyond that. And she said, you have the blessings of the gods and goddesses with you, which you're familiar with, and many more as well. And Arthur blesses you to be of good cheer from the depths of your heart. And she said, the power of joy is one with which blessings are now given. And just be aware within your body, for these blessings will emerge from within. Unlike many of the blessings you're used to receiving, this one will emerge from within your own heart and come out and ripple through you. And breathing gently and deeply, and be willing for the blessings of joy. Be willing for the blessings of joy. And finally, she says, connect every day to the source of yourself, your higher self, and the friends of your soul. Connect, beloved ones. Connect and know that you're operating through many worlds. And everything you do that works towards the light will have endless repercussions in reaching your soul in ways beyond your mind. Namaste. Well, that was a bit of a cosmic feast, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Goddess Speaks. If so, please share it with your friends and your family so they can benefit too. If you'd like to connect with me, visit my website, shaktidurga.com.